See Brown in your face.
Have you heard of Everything at Once?
Do you know about Everything at Once?
It's internationally known.
Aliens listen to it.
It's the best ever.
If there's something you're looking for in the 814, or feeling a little bored and think there ain't no more, check out Everything at Once and allow it to be your source. It's that raw podcast that's always showing support, highlighting the scene. No need to take I-90 to Peep or 79 to see how it be. Interviewing your locals with mindsets that are global. Innovators and creators on every single upload. So much going on in the EPA.
Incredible content.
Everything at Once will keep you up to date.
Amazing guests.
What you doing? Come through and hang with Tony and Dave.
Community driven.
Bringing everything at once from around the way. Everything at once from around the way. Hey.
Please listen. We love you. Everything at Once.
Everything at Once.
It's time to introduce this show.
The best show on the face of the planet.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in today. We want to thank our Patreon producers, Brian G., Josh W., Ian D., Nick G., and Sadie M.
Patreon, it's an awesome way to support the show and say thanks. You can become a Patreon supporter by clicking the link below and choosing to be an intern, assistant, or producer level supporter.
If being on the production team is too much pressure for you, you can also send any contributions using our Venmo at Everything at Once Studios. We now want to thank all the local businesses who supported this episode. These businesses get the Everything at Once stamp of approval and are critical members of the Everything at Once community. We couldn't do it without them. With winter approaching, are there any last-minute details that you want to change or renovate around your home?
I might, but you know who to call.
Yeah! Ghostbusters!
No, Tony. No, not Ghostbusters. Solid State Construction.
Oh, yeah. Solid State.
Yeah.
Duh. Solid State takes pride in all their home remodeling projects. Solid State specializes in bathroom remodeling, kitchen renovation, window and door installation, custom design work, and more, including painting, flooring, drywall, sidewalk, decks. Get your free quote today by calling Nick at 814-397-7854. Solid people, solid product, Solid State Construction.
You know, Tony, with all these renovations from Solid State, I think we might have kicked up some bad energy around here. Yeah, oh yeah. Luckily, we know just the people to go see.
I know it this time. It's Ghostbusters.
No, Tony! Our friends at Cauldron and Thorne!
Wow. I feel really dumb right now, and I can't believe I didn't think of Cauldron and Thorne, the world's largest witchcraft and metaphysical shop, with everything a person needs to channel the spirit world.
Practice some self-care.
Find enlightenment.
Curse your enemies.
Protect yourself from your enemies.
Bless your friends.
Cleanse your space from negative energies. You can check out all the magical wares available at for these different practices we all love and enjoy at Cauldron and Thorne, 2724 West 8th Street, or online at cauldronandthorne.com.
This week, we have an incredible guest for you.
Today, right here, right now, Tommy Link Inc. in the studio, hanging out with us. How are you doing today, man? Thanks for coming down and hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Pretty good.
I'm doing good. I've been jamming out to your Spotify songs all day, enjoying them very much. It reminds me of, I was getting some Tom Petty vibes.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Yeah? Is he a big inspiration for you?
Yes. One of the biggest easily. So the story I always tell is that I learned music backwards. Have either of you guys heard of the Traveling Wilburys?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not very familiar now.
Supergroup.
They're a supergroup. My folks had the cassette tape of the Traveling Wilburys when I was little. We listened to it every car ride. And so I knew who this band was, the Traveling Wilburys, without knowing any of their origins. So the band consists of Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Roy Orbison, and Jeff Lynne.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew this whole tape front to back. I knew all the words probably by age 6. And I would go on to learn more about older music and be like, oh, George Harrison was in this other band, the Beatles. That's exciting. And
Weird.
people, and the rest of the world is just like, who are the Traveling Wilburys? Right. You know, nobody, because they did 2 albums, one before Roy Orbison died and one after. And they all went under pseudonyms. So it was just kind of a fun project that they did together. It was the right place at the right time kind of thing. And it went from there. And so I worked backwards from there and became a huge Bob Dylan fan and a huge Beatles fan and a huge Tom Petty fan, and went through the rest of my parents' records for all my 60s and 70s influences.
Awesome, nice. Dude.
I just think I'd see it's funny. Like, look, that's George Harrison, that guy from the Traveling Wilburys.
You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think of all of the Zoomers out there that discovered Paul McCartney through whatever song he was on with, like Eminem or something.
No, it was a Kanye West
with
song.
Kanye West.
Is that right? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing. They're like, who's this Paul McCartney guy? Kanye West really put him on, dude.
Oh, exactly.
He's blown up now. He's going to be huge, this old man.
Yeah.
What a generous man Kanye West is to put this old man on his record.
Must have been a Make-A-Wish situation.
Right, yeah. He must have been trying to do this for years to finally make it onto a Kanye West album. Jeez. That's the height of his career right there.
Yeah, won the lottery, that one did.
That's funny, though. That definitely reminds me of that story, and going backwards through there. So your music is a lot of guitars, kind of maybe country folk vibes, Americana, singer-songwriter stuff.
Absolutely.
What's the biggest influence other than like that music? Like, what do you like to write your songs about? I'm hitting hard right out of the gate to give you tough questions.
No, a lot of it is very reflective. Writing is an easy way for me to think, easy way for me to sort my thoughts out for as long as I've been doing it. And I like word games in the sense of rhyming, or the sense of a lot of my songs, especially earlier ones, had inside jokes that were just for me, and I thought I was being so clever. And then, as you grow older and look back on these older songs, it's like nobody knew what you were talking about except for you.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if it makes me happy, I guess that's okay. But
I think there was a song that I noticed on the Spotify playlist, one of the first 2 or 3 that came up on Spotify. I can't remember which one, but I remember particularly thinking about a line and how it did not quite make sense for the song, but it probably made sense in some other way to you as a writer or as an artist.
Did you write it down?
I didn't. I mean, I was just listening. I was driving in my car. I'm like listening to the song. I'm like, wait, that particular line doesn't quite add up the way that I think it should. I may have also just misheard you. So
that could be too. I do tend to take after a lot of my idols like Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, and so I don't enunciate as well as I probably should most of the time when I'm singing.
Right, and I think there's like a fine balance in that when you're a singer or when you're performing like on a stage or to a microphone. The difference between like over enunciating certain words and under enunciating, and somewhere in the middle there's a very happy balance, because I feel like if you see like a stage or a theater performance, or you see a stage or theater performer singing a song, they will enunciate certain ends of certain words that I remember from being in like middle school and high school chorus, like your T's at the end of words and other things like that are supposed to, that if you don't enunciate enough or the way they want, the teacher wanted you to, you would get a firm talking to about enunciating. But I thought it sounded really silly if I have to like really put that extra enunciation in there.
Sure.
You know?
Well, and with singers that I've met over the years on the scene and out and about, it's always funny to see where they got their voice from. Because a lot of times when you're listening to things that people are covering, something that they're covering that comes from one of their first inspirations or one of the first songs they learned to play, you can usually tell. It kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, because obviously, there's kind of no such thing in my mind as an original voice, because how do we learn how to sing without listening to somebody else and singing somebody else's song?
Sure.
We're always trying to imitate somebody else. And obviously we start somewhere with one musician and then kind of form our own voice based on what our range is, and then just a combination of all of the different music that we listen to. But when you hear somebody who's playing like one of the first songs they ever learned how to play, I feel like it's worlds difference because it usually sounds like they're doing a straight up impression. And I've been told for years, especially early on, like, oh, you sound just like Bob Dylan. And I would tell people, I don't know if you mean that as a compliment or not, because a lot of people really don't like his voice.
Right. No, that totally makes sense to me because I feel like when I'm singing in a car, like that's where I probably do most of my singing is in my car when I'm driving around
Me
or
as
whatever
well.
song will
Me
come
as well.
on. And I have certain voices that match certain songs. You know what I
Yes.
mean? You learn how to adjust your amount of nasalness or your use of your throat or how much you open your mouth or close your mouth to be able to match the same style of voice as that singer. So
Absolutely.
I think that's really interesting to look at that as a part of a way that a person develops into their own voice based off that and what feels comfortable to them and what sound they like and who they want to, draw those different influences on.
I knew when I was young that like I could write and I enjoy being a writer and like doing this stuff, but mainly writing. Like I was big into Michael Jackson and I can't sing like Michael Jackson. The dream
can.
died extremely young for me. Like I could not hit those notes that I still can't. I'll sing in my car, but I'm like, I can hear him and I can hear me.
Well,
you know?
Right. And that's part of it too, is just
Learning your range.
learning your range and either who you can sing that's in that range or how you can change a song, whether it's just changing the key or finding a way to make it your own. So other voices can suit you. That's something in a lot of the covers that I've been doing is finding voices that are not like my own, or especially covering a lot of women who are inspiring songwriters to me and finding ways to cover their songs and make it work when their ranges aren't in the ballpark for me.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting process. I used to date an opera singer, like a classically
cool.
trained opera singer a long time ago, and she would not particular argue with me, but as like somebody who was unfamiliar with opera and dating somebody that opera was very important to, I went through a process of trying to learn more about it. And a lot of that was talking about voices, and I would play something on the radio and she would almost like diagnose how they were singing and how it was incorrect according to like opera and like pure voice and actual use of like the vocal cords and stuff like that. So she would argue with you. She would argue with you that there is a actual pure voice out there that most people do not actually use, and it's just in opera.
Oh, that would make sense, because otherwise, if you weren't taught, how would you even know how to access it?
Right, exactly. And I mean, I have no idea. So I would kind of just play different artists for her. It was a fun little game for me. I don't know how much she actually liked it, but I thought it was really interesting for me to try and play different artists for her. And she would be like, find somebody that she would think has like a good voice, because to her, a good voice was very different than what you or me or anybody else might consider a good voice, because there's people that have very unique and very original voices that are unique to them, and maybe they whisper a little bit, they have a little bit of rasp in their voice, or they have a little bit of a more nasally sounding voice, but to her that was like improper singing.
I remember something came across my I watch a lot of YouTube because I'm also a older gentleman.
Wait, is YouTube old now?
I think it
man.
kind of, I mean, in
Nobody
certain
told
ways
me.
it is.
No, the Zoomers still love it, but it's been around forever.
So I listen to my
Sure.
music on YouTube. I'm old.
Okay.
I don't but across my algorithm, this just made me think of it like it was like Britain's Got Talent or whatever, and it was this little like 10, 11-year-old kid, but he could sing in like the key was like I forget what they called it. It was like the cherub key or like the angelic key, and it was just like the that stuff. But like just making those sounds, it was just like the fucking like most moving so I can understand where she's coming from, like when you're hitting just like certain notes, like
In the stratosphere.
Right.
exactly. Because
Yeah.
I was like, this kid, it was like church. It was
Right.
like church hymns, and I was just like, God damn, I don't listen to this stuff, but like this is incredible.
Yeah, you respect the talent and understand that the practice that goes into being able to create that kind of stuff, and the determination and the willpower and all of those things. When did you start like making music? When did you think you started writing songs? Or got the idea that you might want to start writing songs?
I think I only wrote one before college. I took a swing at it. That was the first one I can remember writing down. And then it was a lot, yeah, there was a big push in college. That was probably when I was the most active writing. I just kind of got a taste for it and really liked doing it. And I think probably from being a Bob Dylan fan and obsessing over him for a little bit, 'cause he has just such long songs and with so many verses. And it's just, that became an exercise for me of being able to memorize his songs in full and knowing all the words. And so that led me down a path of enjoying writing. So college, I would say, is when I really started getting into it and keeping track of them and keeping notebooks full of them. And it kind of went from there. And since then, as things have gotten busier and slower, it's kind of taken the back seat, and it's just when ideas come and go.
Was it writing songs or playing guitar? Which came first?
I guess technically playing guitar first, though before that, there were piano lessons.
Okay. So piano, then guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, piano lessons were forced. Best thing for me, but it was a rule in the house. Me and my 3 siblings all had to take, I think, 3 years of piano lessons.
Interesting.
And we all did it kicking and screaming. But my parents are the type of parents, it's like, you're gonna try everything for a little bit and see what sticks against the wall. We all had to do like YMCA intramural sports.
Sure.
We all had to do piano lessons. And yeah,
There's a lot of value to piano and music and learning those kinds of things
absolutely.
as a youth, for sure.
As I said, like, best thing for me. I learned how to read music, never thinking I would have a need for it or anything. And it wasn't until years later. I didn't start playing guitar until I was 16. So it was probably a good, maybe as many as 10 years in between then and when I stopped taking piano lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But
enjoyed the guitar more? Probably because it wasn't forced.
Yeah, it was thinking about it now, it was probably singing that I enjoyed the most. And it was something that I didn't realize that I really had a voice for right away. But as mentioned earlier, I was a big car singer. My siblings did not care for that, but I loved doing it. And in high school, this is so bizarre to think about, looking back on it now. Our gym class in, I forget which grade it was. We had these really big gym classes where it was kind of a couple of grades mixed together, and they would have 2 or 3 teachers going at once, kind of taking everybody off in different groups. Anyway, there was one of the gym teachers who I think was a karaoke DJ on the side. And he brought in he would do it like before a holiday, like before Christmas break or before summer break, when everybody was just not doing work anyway. He would bring in his DJ setup, his karaoke setup, and the gym class would do karaoke. And like, I did a song and was really surprised by the response I got from it. And I'm like, I didn't know I could sing well enough for people to clap for it and be into it.
That's
like,
cool.
that was cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So that I can think is probably the first time where it was like, okay, I can sing in front of people. That's kind of a neat thing, because I was pretty introverted. I wasn't in any sort of performing arts before that or anything. I just liked to sing. And I took guitar as an elective in high school in 10th grade, and it was pretty cool. And my mother, being the saint that she was afterwards, was like, did you like the guitar class? And I was like, yeah, it was fun. And she's like, if you want, I'll pay for lessons for you to go to World of Music and take lessons.
Cool.
And I did that for 2 years before college.
Nice. You went to school around here?
Magickal, yeah.
Nice. So did I. Magickal. We are, that's Penn State. I almost said we are. I don't remember what we said at Magickal. Go Trojans.
I wouldn't know. I didn't go.
Yeah, it was fun. I took a guitar class and a piano class at Magickal too, and nice. They were very enjoyable. I kind of really liked the piano class because they had these really, really cool keyboards there that had very awesome ways for me to make really interesting noises.
Sure.
On through different effects and stuff that the keyboards had, and I really enjoyed that from time to time. But I never really stuck it out enough to get good at any of the instruments there. I took guitar in like middle school, but it didn't really stick. I was too busy being distracted in middle school to really focus and hone in on anything. I think that learning an instrument later in life probably is maybe not easier, but in some ways it's much easier to focus, because I feel like I was very, very scatterbrained at a younger age.
Sure.
To learn or to put time in, or to recognize the rewards of the time that I was putting into any particular task, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I wasn't quite recognizing that sense of accomplishment that I really appreciate so much today in learning different things and accomplishing different goals.
Mm-hmm.
I was a sports guy.
Yeah.
I was on the other side of it. I got into sports when I was younger and just absolutely loved it. But then I grew up to be 5'7" and not totally coordinated. So I didn't have much of a future after high school. So
It's the way she goes. And everybody has their own path, you know what I mean? I think it's interesting that you along with quite a few other artists that have been on the show recently kind of got into music. Maybe not later in life, but later than I would think a lot of people, because we've had people that like, oh, you know, I picked up a guitar, or I picked up music, started writing songs when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
I'm very envious of all of them.
Right. They've had so much more time and so much more practice to accomplish these things. And there's also quite a number of people that really didn't start making music until their late teens, you know?
Yeah.
And it goes into, you know, where you're at in life and what's called and what sticks and what type of development you have. Gideon. She's our studio manager. I'm sorry she's bothering you over there.
All good. Hi, Gideon.
So, have you always been a artist as well, as far as like drawing?
No.
I know you do comics. We talked a little bit earlier before the podcast about doing comics before the along with your music. When did you start making cartoons? What brought that about?
I did. I mean, I always have liked doodling, and I've always loved comic strips. We got the Erie Times growing up, and I always read the funnies before going to school every day. I
feel like you're a much more advanced child or teenager than me, because I would not pick up the newspaper for any reason as a youth.
Oh, I read the sports section in the comics. What was your favorite comic? Did you have one?
Oh gosh, it's tough. The Erie Times had a lot that I really liked. I liked Luann. I liked Curtis. I liked. I feel like we had Calvin and Hobbes off and on, and that's always kind of the OG. We had a lot of the books of Calvin and Hobbes, but all the Peanuts, Zits, Baby Blues. It's interesting, the ones where time stands still and the characters never age, and then you have ones like Luann, like Baby Blues, like For Better or For Worse, where the characters age either in real time or some sort of, close to equivalent of it. Foxtrot, and it's always interesting to see those comparisons of, like, aging gives you all these other storylines, but for, I think, Blondie and Dagwood just had like 80-year anniversary, and it's just like, wow, how do you keep the same characters and literally draw them the same way and change them not even a little bit and still have things to write about? I feel like that's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Well,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's definitely a wide range of activities that these characters would have to go through. But that's the way time is, I think, in general. The progressive nature of things always changing and never staying the same allows for new opportunities and new experiences to put down on paper, whether it's in a song or in a comic or however it is that people choose to express themselves.
I know it's a different medium. I'm still thinking of cartoons. Like, it blows my mind that something like The Simpsons can still be around after when did it, like 1989. Like that's like almost 40 years old, and they're still just like rocking and rolling. Like,
it was unheard of before them for a cartoon to last that long.
Well, South Park's got to be getting close to their 30th season too.
That's true.
And but yeah,
and those kids never age, and God, have they been through so much stuff.
I know.
Well, same with The Simpsons and all of those guys, but I think that it's a good comics and satire are one of my favorite reflections on reality in general.
Sure.
It's a good way to shine light on some of the things that are silly that we may not recognize as human beings in our daily life, and gives us the opportunity not take so much so seriously.
Well, not to get dark, but my favorite thing about comics is like it's like a warm blanket. Like some of them you say progress, but like I always love Garfield. Like that was my favorite one.
Garfield is another, OG.
Like Garfield or Peanuts or whatever. But it's like it doesn't matter how many years pass. Like these characters that you've gotten to know and make part of your daily routine, they just stay the same age.
Sure.
That's like you can't do that in many mediums. Like
Right.
So that's what I always liked about cartoons. Just
the immortality.
That constant, it's a constant immortality. Like you watch like live action shows with actors, you're like they get older and older, and you can't like replace someone with a carbon copy. So it's like the passage of time weighs heavier in different mediums.
Yeah, that's really interesting to think about, and to lend that perspective of time and aging into comics and how they don't exist. As far as comics go, I'm really more of a graphic novel type of person.
Sure.
I like Alan Moore. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote V for Vendetta and Watchmen and a couple other really fantastic novels that really speak to me as a cynical, nihilistic person.
I have seen those movies, but I have not read the graphic novels.
They did a really, in my opinion, they did a really good job of interpreting them onto film. Alan Moore deeply disagrees with it and is very upset by all of them and them taking his things, but I don't think he had much of a say in it because DC sold the rights and they had it. But I think they did a very good job of interpreting them. There's some smaller tidbits, as is with like any book that gets converted into a movie they're missing. But for the most part, I think they did an excellent job of making those movies. They're some of my favorite movies. They're some of my favorite graphic novels as well. But I never really got big into... Actually, I shouldn't say that. I had comic books. I just didn't read the newspaper. I read like Sonic the Hedgehog and Batman and like other superhero comic books, but never really newspaper comics.
Yeah, we used to get the Sonic Archie comics from the library all the time, me and my brother. So Sonic was a big one for me.
Oh yeah, eating chili dogs and running fast.
That's right.
It was the best. Loved it. And there's such a different perspective on something that goes in a newspaper versus a comic book like Sonic too. There's such a, I mean, they come out daily, so you can write these longer storylines. But for the most part, I feel like, at least from what I know and from what I've experienced later in life, as far as newspaper comics go, they're very much bite size.
Sure. I think there are some that do try to go on the longer form, especially when they're writing once a day. I mean, it's
Daily
kind of
paper.
that old school pacing.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've been trying to do more and more as I've tried to pick up the pace with writing cartoons, because for the longest time I've only been doing once a month, but as I try to put them online, I've tried to up it to at least once a week, and then to do storylines that continue from one strip to another, then maybe go across 5 or 6 strips, as opposed to just being a one-off joke every time.
No, that's definitely interesting, and I think that lends its own kinds of challenges too.
Yeah.
Because you still want to be enjoyable to the daily avid reader that reads progressively throughout the whole time, and the person who's only going to pick this up periodically once a month or once a week, as opposed to 7 days a week. And it still has to make some sense and be enjoyable to multiple audiences.
Sure.
And I think that's a delicate balance, and it adds a extra layer of difficulty and challenge to something that's already difficult and challenging in itself.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah. So these comics are coming out once a week. Where to find them at? On your Instagram?
Instagram is the primary platform I've been using. I got a website up that's pretty much just serving as another place for them to live for anybody who's not on Instagram. And then I'm still putting them out in the Reader once a month, and working on putting together a Patreon, because it's going to hold me to it. I've been doing a good job. I was worried about finding the time to make the leap from doing just once a month to once a week. But I've gotten it down to a science. I can usually start and finish a whole cartoon in one sitting, which is great.
Do you draw them on paper?
Yeah, I draw them on paper, just pen and ink and pencil. and then take a picture of them, throw them on the computer, and I color them and edit them as I need through
Photoshop?
It's a free version of Photoshop, like equivalent. I think it's called it's GIMP.
Okay,
You've
yeah.
ever heard of that?
I'm familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. One of the other cartoonists from the Reader actually recommended it to me, and it's been serving me well.
Cool. So it's interesting. Do you do any other graphics or drawing, or do you stick to the comics for right now?
No, pretty much just the comics. When I started, I was starting to play out more, and I started drawing this cartoon version of myself, who is the primary character of the cartoon. And I used to dress like that all the time. I had this cheap little fedora that I bought from Walmart as a Halloween costume while I was in college that I just started wearing all the time, just to be like, oh, this is going to be part of the outfit as a musician.
Right.
So I had much longer hair than I do now. And so that was kind of the cartoon version of myself, since I already kind of looked that way. And I was using it to draw basically just like little, like if I didn't have many shows coming up, just to have something else to post, or I would use it to advertise for shows. I would just like write the information and basically make like a little banner or a little flyer with the cartoon me on it. And it was Nick Warren, who is the former managing editor of the Reader. Now it's Aaron Phillips. It would have been about 7 years ago, maybe a little more now. He reached out to me and said, we have local cartoons in the Reader. We were curious if you'd want to try doing a strip, since you already have this cartoon version, this cartoon character that you've been drawing on. And which was really exciting. And it was just like, I'm not an artist. I don't think I took an art class after high school. I don't remember taking any in college. But I've always loved comic strips, and I thought, yeah, whatever.
It'd be fun.
Why not give it a shot?
Yeah, sure.
So I went and saw if I could come up with ideas. Back then it was every 2 weeks. They were still doing, it was before COVID, so they were still doing bi-weekly issues. And I kept up with it, and eventually at first they were all black and white, and then I started working on them more on the computer with Paint and eventually GIMP, and colorized them, and then started putting them on Instagram. And
now here we are.
Yeah.
How long ago was it? COVID,
that was
3-4 years
4
ago?
years ago.
Right. That I started.
4 years, wow.
I know. Hard
Yeah,
to
dude, jeez.
But that was when I switched over to I actually looked it up, and the first one that I got put in the Reader was January of 2017.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So 7 years as of the beginning of this year.
Cool.
Yeah. I think
that's interesting to use it in other aspects too, as far as like self-promotion for your music and for shows and stuff.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was just something that was easy to do. They were always just little like one panel, single picture things. And again, trying to cultivate the look, it was funny. I would run into people, or people would see me out and about and would recognize me as the cartoon character.
That's hilarious.
Because I still looked a lot like that.
Sure.
And they wouldn't even know I was actually a musician. I can remember being out, I think I was playing a show at Calamari's years ago. And I was at the bar before the show started getting a drink. And this guy's like, looked at the hat and looked at me and was just like, you're the cartoon guy. He's like, I seen you in the Reader. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I'm playing a show. He's like, oh, you play music too? And I'm like, yeah, that's why the cartoon is about a musician. It's self-narrative.
That's so funny. I really like that cartoons and stuff can be reflective of real life in a way that people would recognize you from a cartoon. Because cartoons generally are not like high or fine art. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm drawing a portrait that has lifelike graphics and like visually looks like you, but you're able to, a cartoon artist is able to make it look enough like yourself, or have enough, like certain details that will stand out to people in their memory and be able to recognize that that depiction or that graphic in real life.
Well, I think it goes to show, and I would love for there to be a science experiment about this if there hasn't been already, but I feel like our brains can get pretty lazy as far as identifying things, especially people. And the example I always think of is years ago, one of my day jobs I was working, this girl started coming in, and every time, for whatever reason, I thought it was my girlfriend. And I look at her every time, and I'm like, she looks nothing like my girlfriend. I don't know why. But she was about the same height. She had a similar haircut and hair color, and kind of wore similar. But it made me feel like I'm the worst. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah, why?
You know, one day she came up with her hair back, and I didn't think that at all. And I was just like thinking that I'm a crazy person. And then one day she came in and out, and one of my coworkers was just like, "Oh, is that your girlfriend who was just in here?" And I felt totally vindicated. I'm like,
Nice,
our
yes.
brains are
Thank
so
goodness.
lazy. It's like, oh, it's a similar shape and color, and yeah, it's probably the person you're thinking of.
Right.
And I think that's it. I think it's just because I had garnered this look of having the same long, bushy hair all the time, and I wore the same hat everywhere. People are just like, "Oh yeah, it has to be that guy."
Right.
Could
I
be-
don't.
My cartoons are not particularly detailed. I
Right.
mean, they're basically glorified stick figures.
Exactly. And I like that idea, but I would I have a slightly different take, and it's more not that we're lazy, but we are very intensely creatures of habit, and that certain pathways in our brain are carved so strongly, like certain connections and certain neurons and transmitters that fire so frequently between each other, that anything remotely to that fires along those same pathways and makes us recognize those things. So I don't think it's laziness. I just think it's that we are very much creatures of habit.
I think that's tomato at this
Right,
point.
yeah, a little bit of the same thing, I guess.
I'm not lazy. I'm a creature of habit.
Right, yeah.
And this couch is my habit.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Have you ever seen like those like experiments? I wouldn't say experiments, but it's like on a reading level. Like they put something up and you fill in the blanks for words. Like if you're reading a sentence and they intentionally
yeah.
misspell words, and your
Yes.
brain automatically fixes it
Right.
to what it's supposed to be. So it could just be like a high
Level of intelligence.
High level of intelligence. I'm bringing a third
Correct
thing in.
the errors.
But see, that sounds lazy to me too, because
Yeah.
it's just like, it's close enough.
I'm trying to bring something better to it, because a couple weeks ago I was at the gym and I was leaving, and there was this girl that was sitting in the lobby area, and like she had like type of hair and like jean jacket that like one of my friends wear, and I was like, "Oh, that's her." And I like went up and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And this person like turned, and it was looked nothing like her
yeah.
at all, and she's like, "Who the fuck
That
are
happens
you?"
all the time.
And I'm like,
Right.
"Okay, I'm gonna leave now." Like,
Leave the state, leave the country, probably change
Right.
my name.
I do not have. I'm not smooth enough to be like, "Oh yeah," I was just like, "Okay, I'm gone."
Yeah, and then it always sounds like even worse. You're like, "Oh, I thought you looked like my one friend." You know what I mean? That's never a winning situation.
But
with people.
I want to just be able to go like I'm of such high intelligence that I was
I
able.
corrected your errors,
I corrected the errors there, you know.
and
I'm
you
just
are
like,
actually this
you
person.
look like someone else, and my brain is just so high functioning that it filled in the blanks. That's the narrative I want us to take from
That's
this
good.
instead of laziness.
Yeah, we're actually superior.
See, I'm embracing it. I'm
Embracing the
I
lazy.
made my peace with it. Yeah, I got a lazy brain.
No, I agree. And there's definitely a lot of points where I can accept my laziness, and there's certain other points where I'm like, where I actively have to rally against my own laziness. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I wouldn't get anything accomplished.
Sure. There's a reason I write a lot of songs in the same key. You gotta love those G and C chords.
G and C.
My fingers sure love them.
Well, they sound amazing.
They
first
do.
off.
And they just feel so right.
Right.
Because I've been doing them for so long.
Well, that's all you need when you're playing Bob Dylan and Tom Petty
You're
and
not wrong.
the Beatles, right?
That's right.
They're all those same chords, and they're all just manufactured slightly different or put in different
Yeah.
rhythms. It's interesting.
I'd say the Beatles did a little bit of experimentation, but yeah, I guess.
I mean,
so.
maybe back then, but I feel like over time, all of the things have been played eventually by someone somewhere. It may not be recorded or written
Sure.
down,
There's only
but
12 notes.
yeah. How crazy can we get? There's probably some mathematician who's listening out there. Let us know how many combinations of musical notes and rhythms there are out there, so that way we can know for sure. You think it's higher or lower than the chances of hitting the right numbers on the Powerball? It has to be lower.
Oh, it's lower, dude.
Nah, maybe
oh,
not
lower
though.
on a guitar.
Well, on a guitar, you got 12 notes, and then you got each note split into down to 16th notes. That's about as low as I think is maybe 30 seconds if you're on a drum or playing like, like super fast tremolo picking on a guitar if we're seeing guitar.
Well, right. And there's a lot of factors to consider if you're just talking about the 12 notes by themselves or in the, what octave they're in and things like that. So it could get pretty wild. But
it could be near Powerball numbers, I would guess.
The Powerball's like around, I believe, like 750 million to 1. So like that's a lot of combinations.
Yeah.
750 million. I feel like that's possible though. I mean, that's how many numbers is it? Like 6 numbers, 1 through 28?
No, it's well, this is an interesting rabbit hole we've gone down.
We're all playing the lottery.
We're all playing the lottery after this.
Well, we need to give the details for our mathematician that's listening. That's going to give us the answer somewhere.
The Powerball is like, it's either 60 or
1 through 60
or
per
69 ball? Numbers. Yeah, for the first 5, and then the Powerball is a separate number that's up to either I think it's 20 or 25.
Well, we have
so
12,
they're 2 separate pools,
and we have, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 variations on that, off each note. So I don't know. Mathematician, you're going to have to help us out. I'm sorry I drug us down this rabbit hole of numbers. Numbers are interesting to me and weird. I'm not good at them, and I don't understand
the
them.
mathematician's going to have to be your next guest.
Yeah. We got to find one out there to solve this problem. I would love to interview a mathematician.
I would too. We need to get a hold of some of these
mathematicians
universities
out there. Come on the show. We'll talk about math, and you'll teach us numbers because we don't get them.
We don't understand.
We just obviously clearly failed at trying to figure out how many options there are in notes or chords.
Well, you guys need to have Frank Marzano on. Do you know Frank Marzano?
No.
He is a singer-songwriter and also a math professor at Edinburgh.
Oh,
okay.
Sounds like
Frank Marzano, if you're out there.
He will give you all the answers.
We're gonna find you, Frank Marzano.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
You'll be on here soon, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, you don't have a choice in the matter. The probability of something happening becomes absolute given enough time and energy.
Yeah.
I don't know if is that a real thing.
I've been saying it for the past year. That's like my mantra for this year.
Okay, so
like
it's
more science than math.
Yeah, it sounds like science, and the way you said it, I gotta give you this. You got a lot of confidence, so you could just throw some like math number out there. You could just like walk up to someone. You could do it. I can't, but like you could walk up to someone and convince them that the guitar, chords or whatever, there's more than Powerball numbers, and by the time you'd be done talking to them, they believe it. It's the way you just said that. I was like, is this a fucking science? If I didn't know him so well, I'd be like, wow, he really knows his science. Like,
it's not even I just made that up. There's not any sort of thing, but I feel like it's also true. It's a new law of physics. Given enough time and energy, the probability of something happening becomes absolute.
I don't think that's true, but I just don't think that's true.
What can I not put enough time or energy into that won't eventually happen?
It depends if it's something that you're doing as a personal endeavor that involves no other people, or if it includes other people. Like
both.
God damn it!
What could I not do given enough time and energy?
Change, maybe like something a person. No, I'm not doing this with you right now.
I got one. I could probably not figure out how to turn straw into gold.
Well, if you do that, then we're done.
Goddamn
podcasting.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah. If you can figure out alchemy, then we got a new business.
I'm working on it. We got to build a Merkaba first in the backyard.
I don't know what that is.
A Merkaba is like a. Oh man, we're going all the way deep here. First, we're talking about math
music,
and probability.
Forget cartoons.
Now we're talking
solving the universe right here.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the Anunnaki?
I have not.
The Anunnaki is an alien race that came to Earth about 10,000 years ago when the Earth was still like one Pangea, except it's not called Pangea. It's called like something else. There's another name for it. But the Anunnaki came here and they taught people how to do shit like build the pyramids and do all these other things and travel through time and harness infinite energy. And then there was a great cataclysm that destroyed everything, and the Anunnaki left before that. That's why we don't have any of that stuff.
Gotcha.
And the Anunnaki would use Merkabas to travel, which are like this geometric form or shape that transcends through space and time perpetually or infinitely, and are under the control of the Anunnaki people. That's what a Merkaba is. Dave's supposed to be building one. Dave's been supposed to be building one for like the past, I don't know, like at least probably, I don't know, like since I dated Crystal like 7 or 8 years ago.
What you don't know is I've been avoiding this topic because COVID's kind of my fault. I fucked up the Merkaba.
Made COVID.
Yeah,
God damn it.
Once I finally placed everything the way that I thought it should be.
Yeah.
Like the next day, they were like, everything's shutting down. And I was like, I did something wrong.
If anybody is interested in more of that crazy, ridiculous Merkaba shit or the Anunnaki or Martian or the city of Atlantis or any of that stuff, there's the Spirit Science guy on YouTube is super fucking interesting about that shit. I don't know if anybody else is interested in weird shit and alien conspiracy theories that maybe or maybe not spawned the pyramids, but I think it's fucking fascinating.
It's pretty
Spirit Science guy. That's how it all started. Is we watched one of his videos about the aliens coming to Earth and building Merkabas and Martians and people being 15 feet tall.
It was kind of like going back to cartoons. It was kind of like one of those infographic shows.
Infographic shows.
Like how they like do it all in like almost like slideshow cartoons. Have you?
Yeah.
It's like a super popular YouTube channel, like the Infographics Show, and they like go and like do stuff through history, and it's almost like it's like cartoon strips, but like the people are moving in them. But it's like the vibes of cartoons.
Cartoon strips, solid picture or like stationary pictures with voice narrative overlay describing the situations that's going on.
Gotcha.
They're pretty neat.
It's very interesting, and he does a great job explaining that stuff. I think there's some kind of sketchy nonsense going on with him.
No pun intended.
No pun intended with the cartoon, but his stuff is very interesting. There's a lot of different other old books. Well, not old books, but books about like the cataclysm in 10,000 years ago. That seems to be about the time when human beings really started getting into interesting thing in the development of agriculture and the maybe building of the pyramids, depending on who you ask, and the way the earth was made. Or maybe not the way the earth was made, but the way the earth was populated and human race and all that shit.
I feel like this episode has gotten a very like I feel like it's appropriate that you're such a gigantic Bob Dylan fan, because like I feel like this is taking the cadence of one of his like deeply poetic songs.
I think he wrote a song about this exact conversation.
About exploring the inner workings of the past and how we became humans, and
I think that's what It's All Right Ma is about.
I was gonna say Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands.
That could be too. I think that's part 1 and 2 of this conversation.
I like it. It could be a little bit of like Stuck Inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. You know, there's a little bit of stuff mixed around.
He had one in each album based off of this conversation.
And now that this has happened, he's like, my God, they've done it.
If you guys think that Tim Dillon didn't know about the Anunnaki, you're both out of your mind and not very good Tim Dillon fans. I'm just going to say that.
I don't know who Tim Dillon is.
Or not Tim Dillon. Tim Dillon is a comedian.
Bob Dylan.
Man. I thought you knew something that I didn't know there.
Yeah, I was confused. I was like, you lost me.
Tim Dillon probably is a comedian. He probably knows about the Anunnaki too, but Bob Dylan, I think, definitely knew about the Anunnaki.
He probably arrived on it.
Eventually, somewhere.
They always said that I'm fascinated with history, especially music history, especially the like 50s or 70s. And he's always had a rap for being someone who was just like, how did this 21-year-old write this like fucking deep and poetic of music, like his early folk, so all of his stuff, but his early folk like protest songs is just like holy how did dude this young like fucking hit these depths. So I could see him being like, well, he's transcendent in more than one way, but like, like from a different astral plane.
Yeah, there's definitely that possibility with him. If there is with anybody, he's on the list.
He's on the list. How do we make sure we stay off the list, though? These days, the people are watching, dude. I'm gonna go full conspiracy.
No, don't do that.
No, I won't. I'll keep it non-conspiratorial, other than the Anunnaki rant that we went on here a little bit ago.
Yeah, we're gonna. Let's rein.
Let's go back. So country or Americana folk music. It's really nice. Bob Dylan's great.
I don't know. It kind of sounds like Small Potatoes now.
Yeah, right. Sorry, I ruined your show.
No,
Oh, it's your show.
No. These are big potatoes.
Watch out for Tommy Link's next comic book featuring him meeting the Anunnaki.
That's right. That's right. We're going a whole new direction.
A whole new direction. Nobody's going to see it coming.
Not even me.
Yeah, right. It's either going to be that or the next strip is going to be like Tommy Link goes on a podcast and doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, these guys are real weird. Didn't see this one coming on this podcast. Everything at once, baby. We're going there.
It's like
Hey, living up to the name.
Yeah, if you have an agenda or anything that you want to talk about or promote, we will happily ruin it for you and
just
take
gotta
you
find
into
the
other
time.
zones. Yeah.
It's like strip 1 is like you with your guitar, like, oh, I can't wait to talk about my music. Then the next strip is him like 10,000
so
years
did you
ago.
know about the Anunnaki 10,000 years ago?
10,000 years ago when
the
the Earth was one, and it's just back to you, like looking to the side, like what the fuck is going on?
We'll be waiting for that comic.
You got it.
Everything
It's
at
on
once.
its way.
Yeah. No, please do whatever you don't do that. Don't listen to us. Do your thing. We have no idea what we're talking about. And I generally dislike when people try to tell me how to do my job. So I apologize for trying to say that you should make a comic about the Anunnaki.
That's okay.
Do people tell it? What do you think about people trying to tell you what should be in your comics?
Does it happen?
Does get old. It does happen. More often I hear you should write a song about it, which my favorite thing. There was a minute, I do TikTok because I do try to stay somewhat relevant to the younger generation. I don't keep up with it very often, but there was a moment where I was just trying to do original stuff on TikTok where it's not necessarily songs that I had written, but just try to come up with little ideas for like a minute long, like maybe one verse song. And my favorite one that I did was called You Should Write a Song About It. And I think someday that'll probably turn into a real song. Definitely has like a sarcastic country song vibe to it. But it does get pretty frustrating. Hearing people say like, oh, that would be a fun idea. And it's just like, maybe that's not how it works.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You should do this.
Yeah.
Or you need to do
I'm
that.
sure chefs love it when you go and you're like, do you know what should be on your menu?
Oh, man. I think everybody loves that.
Right.
You know what I mean? No matter what the profession, when somebody else is just telling you how to do what you do at a high level, it's just...
You guys are sushi place? Do you have cheeseburgers? You should have cheeseburgers.
Right.
You should make a cheeseburger sushi roll.
Yeah, man.
Everybody would love that.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah, right?
That's
That's actually...
a $1 million idea.
So there's probably been once or twice where what's really frustrating is where something happens or somebody says something, and in my brain, I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm going to make a cartoon about that. And then somebody says, like, you should make a cartoon. And it's just like, well, great. Now
Not anymore.
Exactly. Because it's like, now if I make the cartoon, they're going to be like, you
I
listened
thought
to
of
my
that.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to suggest things all the time. And it's just like, well, there's a great idea, and I have to throw it away off of spite. Principle and spite. I am not allowed to use this idea because what will they think?
I feel that on a personal level. Like
It
somebody's
is.
like, oh, you should get this person on the show. And I'm like, yeah, not anymore.
Right. They were on the list, but now I'm going
Yeah,
to...
scratch them off because
Wow.
you tried to tell me what to do. And it's frustrating, and that I feel like that comes with the territory. And I also like need to take a step back from time to time and realize that people are just trying to help.
Yes.
Generally, they are not
Yes.
doing this out of malicious intent or any sort of bad idea or thinking that I can't do what I do or whatever it is. It's generally just people being nice and friendly and thinking that something has value.
Sure.
I think that's one of the coolest things, and I don't talk about it every time when we have guests on, but it comes up occasionally. I think that's why I like creatives that actually go out and do things with their creative endeavors are some of the coolest fucking people and the most badass people on earth, because like I feel like a lot of the times you get suggestions from people who either don't think they can do it themselves, it might just be like subconsciously like don't
Right.
think they can do it themselves, or just don't have the energy or passion to do it themselves.
Sure.
You know, so like it's like be my vessel, and that's very annoying, but it's also
Right.
like a compliment. You know, like I trust
Right.
you enough with this idea that I think you could do a good thing, but it's also annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to kind of try to keep it in perspective and not get frustrated by it because there can be things that are lost in translation, and people, because a lot of us creatives, or anybody, we don't always know how it works because it's not, it's the opposite of the day job. It's the opposite of the 9 to 5. We're not clocking in and just, whittling away at something, so to speak. A lot of times we sit around at stare at blank pages and have no ideas until one day we're bored in our patent office and we come up with the theory of relativity or whatever the equivalent is.
Right, yeah.
It's just every time you try to force something, or at least for me anyway, anytime it's just like, okay, today I'm going to write a song. I have 0 ideas, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of doing it. 99 times out of 100, that is not a song I'm going to keep or play. Because it's just, sadly, it doesn't work that way. There is no just on-off switch that can be like, let's produce a good idea.
I think that I agree with you in many aspects to that, but I also think that on-off switch is very much like a muscle in certain ways, that sometimes the muscle works and sometimes the muscle doesn't. And the more often I exercise that muscle, even if it is in something maybe that's more manufactured or doesn't have the personality or the passion or the soul or the spirit that I hold myself to whenever I'm creating or producing something, that exercise is still strengthening that creative part of my brain.
Yes, that I can agree with. There's nothing wrong with just doing something for the sake of doing it, even if you're not particularly happy. Yeah, it's definitely a good idea. It's the better of two options, is to do it just for the sake of doing it. But in regards, I think sometimes people think that you're just looking for throwaway ideas.
Right.
When it's just like, that's...
Or like, I have so much time to just take this random thing
Yes.
and turn it and flush it out and put all the work in it. I think that a lot of people miss like all of that work that goes in behind the scenes to create one song or to create one comic or to create one, whatever it is that anybody is producing. And they think that like, oh, you have this idea now, it should be easy, right? It should,
Right.
This is no problem. You'll do this
Right.
in like 10 minutes, 5 minutes in your spare time, because this is what you do all the time for
That's
fun.
right. Yep.
Especially when you're already on a daily basis, or for me, already on a daily basis, trying to figure that out on a creative level on your own.
Sure.
Like the stuff that you're like wrestling with to figure out on your own, and then someone's like, hey, on top of what you're doing,
Right.
in your own brain, why don't you like have some more cats in that
Yeah.
or something. I just thought of the cat earlier, but you should do this, and you already got like trying to work out like another equation of like how you're going to do something in your head. So
Right. Are you learning any Taylor Swift songs? You should be learning some Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah, she's really big right now, dude. You would kill it if you sang a Taylor Swift song.
Yeah, maybe. But I also am trying to write and learn other fun covers that I like to play.
Right. There comes a point of a question of authenticity, I think, of, is this like really me? Is this really expressing me? And I think that is very much like understandable or seeable or perceivable to an audience that knows you as an artist, or I don't know, there's something special about catching something authentic, like a song or a comic or whatever, versus something that is a little bit more manufactured for your audience, which is what it would be if you were producing stuff based off suggestions of other people. It's not a true expression of myself. It's me catering to another person, which is not why I'm making my art. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's for me to be able to express myself, or to unlock some inner meeting, or have some reflective time on the way I live my life, or what I've been doing lately, or what's been on my mind, rather than trying to make something that's going to please tons and tons of people. Because I think that not everything and not every art is for everyone. And when people try to make art that is for everyone, they lose the part of it that makes it art, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that.
I think it's striking a balance. You don't want to totally just like remove yourself from the equation, but kind of like what you were saying earlier with earlier songs, like if you're throwing things in there that just like nobody knows what you're talking about,
Yeah.
that can also be alienating in
Absolutely.
its own way. Because with art, you have to, like, it's yours, this is how I think of it. Like, it's yours, and you want it to be like distinctively unique, but you're also trying to connect with other people with it. So you can't just totally like take other people out of the equation.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, I might really like the way that it sounds when I scratch my fork against my plate.
Oh, that's
like a million times. And I'm never going to cultivate any sort of following or any sort of appreciation if that's what I make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very extreme or grandiose example, but there are definitely situations where you do need to find a balance between what you want and what the audience wants and what resonates with both of you.
Sure.
And I think that also there's like an element of global consciousness or global connection that can drive music that makes it very powerful, where it's not that I'm writing it, it's just that it's writing yourself and I am a vessel. You know what I mean? I am just the pen. My hand is moving on its own accord and it's writing something amazing, and it's not from me, it's from the spirit or the connection or whatever it is that you want to, however you would like to describe it.
Yeah. And those are usually the best when it just comes out all at once and you don't have to come back to it. You don't really have to think about it. It just lines up. But those are few and far between.
For sure. For sure. But it's nice when it happens and it feels really good. And sometimes it's not just, it's speaking or it's talking to a friend or whatever. It's like, wow, did I just say that really?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Did anybody record that?
Yeah, wow. That was some profound fucking shit right
That
there,
was pretty
dude.
good.
Yeah, I always think of the one part in Old School. Have you seen Old School? The one part in Old School where fucking Will Ferrell's debating and he just like takes a drink of water and just says the most intelligent shit he's ever said, and everyone's like, "What happened?" He's like, "I blacked out. Did I do good?" Like,
Exactly.
Right. There's a lot of different ways to come about creativity, and I think putting that time in is something that like I really appreciate, which is why we like to have artists and have people down here to talk about stuff, because I think that I've realized more and more that it can be almost anything that somebody's doing, but if they are passionate about it and they've put a lot of time and are performing it at a high level, that makes it 1,000 times more interesting to me, no matter what that subject may be.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it more enjoyable to watch, more enjoyable to listen to, more enjoyable to analyze and critique and enjoy in its own way when people are passionate about it and have put the time in and the effort to work towards it. And I think that time and effort is often overlooked in today's society. People expect, like, they're like, oh, they see Taylor Swift and she's like, super famous. People are paying thousands of dollars for her tickets, but nobody sees any of the time that any artist put in before they become Taylor Swift. They just expect Taylor Swift out of the gate.
Right.
Everything at once.
Yeah. Everything at once.
Exactly, dude. It's all part of the podcast and the meta form of the name.
Yeah.
Wanting everything at once, realizing you can't have everything at once, and then realizing that everything that can happen at once is happening at once.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I like that.
Well, man, it's been super fun having you down here. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm sorry we kind of sidetracked you and tried to tell you how to do your job.
That's okay. I have homework to do. I got to learn about these aliens. I got cartoons to draw. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, boy. So check out Tommy. Tommy Link. Check out his website. Check out the Instagram. Check out him playing live. He's going to be at a bunch of places this summer. Anything coming up in the not too distant future you want to let the people know about?
I guess to play favorites and be perfectly honest, now that it's almost outdoor weather music season. I don't know what order those words were, but that wasn't the right one. You know what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
It's time for outdoor music.
That's right.
If you've ever been to the Sunset Grill out in Edinburgh,
Yep.
They open in May. And my first gig there is May 11th. I should have looked at it before I got here.
That's all right. We'll put it in the correct stuff in the comments. Just send it to me.
I think it's the 11th, but it's definitely that second weekend of May.
Okay.
And I've been playing there for the past, 10 summers.
It's great. You're on the lake. They got good food.
It's beautiful.
It's
beautiful. They did such a good job building that place up over the years, and good things are worth long waiting for. And when you get a great weather night, and it's honestly, there's nowhere else in town that I would rather play. in the summer. So it's just I'm looking forward to. I have one a month there from May to September.
Awesome.
And obviously, there's usually one at least where the rain comes through, but
Seriously,
even then,
that'll happen.
Even then, it's still a good time, So,
Yeah.
that's I can't wait.
Yeah, check them out at the Edinburgh Sunset Grill, and check them out on all the social medias. Listen to his songs on Spotify. They're great. They're very well produced and well executed, well written, fine work, and definitely enjoyable.
And make sure to pick up an Erie Reader every month and support
Check out the
everybody.
comic. Yeah,
support
that's
local.
right.
Check out the comic. Read everything that in there. It's a great publication.
It really is. Those guys at the Erie Reader do a fantastic job. Nick Warren and the rest of the crew there are all...
it's Aaron Phillips now.
Aaron
Phillips.
Nick retired from the paper a
Yeah,
couple years ago.
I know he still writes for them, though.
He'll do articles,
Yeah.
But Aaron Phillips is the managing editor now.
Aaron Phillips.
Aaron Phillips. Check Nick Warren out, too. He writes some shit. He's a good guy.
He's a great player as well.
Yeah.
He plays guitar for quite a few people. I know he plays with Jess Royer quite a lot, among others.
Ladders,
that's right.
Yeah. All those people. Check out, just support local, dude. It makes our
right.
community better. It makes everybody happier. It's nice to know the people that are going on instead of these faceless drones out there on the internet that we're never going to see all the time. So go local, go talk to people, touch the grass, and have a wonderful night. Thanks to all our sponsors, all of our friends, all the people that tuned in. Y'all are amazing. Peace out.